Okay, any questions first of all? How's the VPC thing going? Again, I strongly encourage you, take the opportunity to get it checked out by the TAs before the deadline. This assignment and actually the assignment for that goes out today. Both of them, it's really common. You sort of check it yourself and you think it's all working, and then we check it and it doesn't work at all. So because there's so many issues between CIDR blocks and different things, and maybe you have the extra. You have your own key loaded up, and so therefore you're able to get all the way through. But again, remember, for your own testing, what I would do is, in terms of Pagent, make sure that the only key that's loaded up is the staff key. Or did I give that to you? No, I didn't give that to you. Sorry. So yeah, So the TAs really do have to check that out. But yeah, so please take advantage of that. That will definitely make kind of everybody's life easier and stuff. So today we're going to continue talking about VPCs. So remember last time, basically we were talking about so not only do we talk about the whole general setup of the VPC and all of those kinds of things, but one of the main parts there was that Bastion host. Right. So remember, the whole idea behind basically Bastion Host, this isn't an Amazon thing. This is sort of networking. This is a networking idea. Is that you have this kind of publicly accessible way for appropriate users to basically be able to gain access to the sort of private resources, right? The private subnet, etc. Now, last time we saw doing this for SSH. And you can certainly do this also for Windows instances. Now, here's the issue that you actually that becomes complicated in that situation. Suppose that I have both Windows and Linux instances sitting inside my private subnet, and I want to be able to access those. Then I actually kind of have to do more work, because realistically what you actually need is you need a Bastion host that's going to allow SSH. You're also going to need a Bastion host, possibly even a separate Bastion host that's allowing RDP traffic to be forwarded on and all of that. So there's directions online for kind of setting that up and all of that. But actually what I'm going to show you today is an easier way of doing that. Okay. And the basic way is to use a VPN. How many people have heard of VPNs? Well, how many people can spell VPN? Right? So VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. Okay. The basic idea is that it's a way to grant access to your network to other people who are not necessarily in that area. So put cloud aside altogether. Okay, you still see companies making a lot of use of VPNs, right? The idea is that, especially for us developer types, it's very, very common for people to telecommute. That is, they don't work physically in the same office. So you may have a small development team at your office, then you might have people across the state, across the country, around the world, etc. All of them need access to that private bit of information. So a VPN allows them to use their VPN client, log into essentially the private, secure intranet for the company, and interact with those resources. Similarly, if you have people who are traveling, right? Again, basically, this gives the company the opportunity for people who are traveling to make use of that. Other things to know about VPN. The connection between the client side and the corporate side, or the network side, is encrypted. Okay? So all that traffic is encrypted, it's basically secured and all of that stuff for you. What that also means is that you see private individuals setting up their own VPN servers for a bunch of different reasons, right? One good example of this, right? So we always hear about be wary of free Wi-Fi, right? Why? Because typically free Wi-Fi is not secured, which means all the traffic that's going across that is basically sent in the clear. So if you're sitting down in Starbucks, connecting to Starbucks Wi-Fi, or if you're at the airport using their free Wi-Fi and you're logging into your bank account, you deserve to have all of your money stolen. Okay? So how do you get around that? Well, one way you can do that is you start up your own VPN server, and then what happens is when you're in the airport, you log into your own VPN server. And now your traffic is encrypted, and now you can surf the web and go to your bank site and all of those kinds of things, right? So you see that. It's also sometimes used to get around region restrictions. A really good example of this, it used to be the case with Netflix, that Netflix was only available in America. So if you're traveling abroad, you want to watch some stuff on Netflix, too bad. Except if you have a VPN server, what you can do is, let's say I'm traveling, I don't care where, so I'm traveling out to Europe. What I can do is I can within Amazon, I can fire up a VPN server running on one of their American data centers, connect to that when I'm basically outside of the country, and now voila, it looks like I'm in America, and I can stream videos and all of that. Another place where VPNs are used is for hacking or somewhat illegal kinds of activities. So for instance, BitTorrent's a good example, right? BitTorrent's peer-to-peer file sharing and all of that. Again, remember, BitTorrent itself is not illegal. Many people use BitTorrent. Arguably, I would say probably most uses of BitTorrent are for basically pirating software and all of those kinds of things, right? And it's really easy to get caught. Why? Because it's peer-to-peer sharing. So essentially, your computer sends out its IP address saying, hey, I've got this illegal file and I'm going to share it with everyone, right? So turns out that there are actually VPN providers that basically don't necessarily keep good logs and will allow you to do things like buy service using bitcoins or sending them cash in the mail or whatever, so that essentially you're basically anonymous. So then I can connect to my VPN, I can fire up my BitTorrent client, and I can stream all of the illegal content I want without having to worry about the MPAA or the RIAA, etc. Right? Not that I've done that, I'm just saying, this is a possibility. You also see it with Kodi. Kodi's one of these sort of set-top free software for doing set-top boxes. There's a bunch of add-ons that allow you to, again, download really illegal content. So, again, people will use it for those things as well. Having said that, if you're thinking, oh, okay, this is cool, we're going to learn how to set up a VPN server, so I can set up my own VPN server in AWS, and now I can stream my BitTorrent, whatever content I want. No. Remember, with AWS, you're on the grid. You had to use a credit card. They know who you are. You're going to get caught. You're going to get fined. All right? So that's kind of the promise of VPN software. Now, as I mentioned last time, with our cloud stuff, with our VPCs, we basically have two different options for making use of VPN. So we saw in the wizard that there are templates for using hardware VPN devices, right? So companies will typically basically own such devices and all of that, and it basically makes it very easy for them to then continue their network out onto their AWS VPC. Okay. I'm not going to have you buy a hardware VPN. We don't need it for our purposes, right? We can do it in software. And that's basically what we're going to do. Now, there's a whole host of different possible software implementations of VPN. One of the most popular and arguably the easiest to set up is OpenVPN. Okay. Now, OpenVPN is free-ish. You can use OpenVPN, and if you only want to have a maximum of 2 simultaneous users on your VPN, then it's free. If you want more than 2 simultaneous users, then basically you have to buy a license. Okay? Again, for our purposes, the free version is going to work just fine. Okay? So, a little later, I'm going to show a VPC with a private subnet with both Windows and Linux servers, and we'll be able to use the VPN software to gain access to those things. Okay. Even before doing that, I'm just going to show you how to set up a plain old OpenVPN server within AWS so that we can actually just sort of look at the concepts of how the VPN's working, kind of see the IP address changes and stuff like that, and all of that. And again, that way, if you know you're traveling and all of that, you are security conscious, you can just set up your own OpenVPN, you're good to go. And then again, like I said, we'll also look today at basically how to do that within a VPC. That's where we're headed. Okay. So let's take a look at this. The cool news is Amazon has an image for OpenVPN for us. Okay, so I'm just going to come over here to EC2. And we'll do our usual launch instance. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to AWS Marketplace. Okay, so I might have mentioned this before, I'm not exactly sure. Basically, these are images. A lot of them are free. Some of them, they actually charge you to be able to use. The OpenVPN one, they don't charge anything extra to use that. You're just paying for your usual EC2 charges for that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is right up here in the search box, I'll just put in OpenVPN and I'll hit enter. And it will give me basically the list of different images, right? So you see we have this first one here, and we have 10 connected devices, right? They kind of tell you about what that would cost and all of that, 25, etc., right? For having the free option, so this one here is both allowing you to use the free option of having maximally two users at a time, as well as what they call bring your own license. In other words, you've already purchased a license from OpenVPN, and basically then there's a part during the setup where essentially you could give it that licensing information and then basically just continue using that. As I said, the thing about OpenVPN, especially what they do with the community images here, it's really solid. This is not one where I've had students come and say, oh, this is really or lots of people making mistakes, and so it's really pretty straightforward to set up and generally works well. So generally shouldn't have too many issues with that. Okay, so let me go ahead and so I'll select this again. Let me go back. Right, so again, to launch it, AWS Marketplace, do your search for OpenVPN, right? And this one here, notice it doesn't say anything about a particular number of users and all that. That's the one you want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then we get this page, and generally you get this with the community images. So it kind of tells you all kinds of stuff about the image. Notice it actually gives you here they're kind of giving you roughly hourly estimates, right? Notice the software column is 0. So again, the only charges that you're accruing are essentially your EC2 charges for this. And then if you set up other parts, they're those, but we're not really being charged for using this image itself. Okay, there's usually this link like this, the view additional details in the marketplace, so you can get kind of all kinds of information about the image here. Right, again, they're giving you kind of your little cost breakdown and stuff like that. There's also a link to kind of the quick start guide, which I believe I do have linked in Canvas. Right. Yeah, I think it's one of these. Yep, I think it's that one actually. Okay, so the one note about that is those tutorials show you creating an elastic IP for your OpenVPN server. Okay. Now here's the thing: having an elastic IP is a great idea for a production environment. Why? Because remember, an elastic IP is a static IP. Suppose something happens to my OpenVPN server. It crashes for whatever reason. If I have an elastic IP, I can just spin up another copy real quick, do the configuration, and then associate the elastic IP with that new instance. And we're just good to go. Okay? However, for our purposes, I'm not really going to bother with an elastic IP. It's just another thing that I can forget to release, and then and of course remember, if the elastic IP is not associated with a running instance, you get charged big time. Okay, so just some kind of notes about that. All right. Let me go back over here to my console, right? So if I scroll down all the way to the bottom of all this stuff, yeah, I still got to scroll down then over here, right? There's a continue button, and I can click continue, and now we're basically back into our regular setting up of instances, right? You can see by default they choose a small. That's actually sort of the recommended size by OpenVPN. Again, for our purposes, the micro version will work, and the reason that's nice, it's free tier eligible, right? So we'll just go ahead and use that. All right, so then I'm just going to go ahead and let me go ahead and click review and launch. Oh yeah, right. For some reason I keep getting this, even though I've selected. Yeah, I keep doing that. Okay. So it comes to here, it says, yeah, here's all the stuff. We could take a look at the security groups, right? There's the various stuff. Certainly we could lock this down to our particular location if we really wanted to. I probably will do that. I think I'm going to do that with SSH. The rest of the stuff I'll kind of just leave as is. But you can just leave it open, that's fine. Tags, I'll add a tag to this, just giving it a name. And we should be good to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and click launch. I will give it my key, and then we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. While that's doing that, let me make sure to load up my key. There it is. Cool, it's running. All right, I'm just going to grab the public IP. I mean, I could use the public DNS if I wanted to. Either one will work just fine. Let me open up Putty. Okay. I already have kind of a general rule for OpenVPN. Basically, the main reason why I have sort of a separate saved session. Note the username. Okay, so the default username is OpenVPN-AS. Okay, and then after that, we will put in that particular IP. Let me go ahead and save it, and I should be able to connect in. Okay, now, as soon as you connect in the first time, it's going to basically run the setup program to configure your OpenVPN server. Okay, so here we have our usual licensing agreement, right? We just we go ahead and click yes for that. Do we want it to be the primary? Yes, absolutely. It is the primary access server, so that's fine. The network interface, right? Yeah, really, I just want it on ETH0, which is also the default, so I can just go ahead and click enter there. I'll go with the default ports, so yeah, we'll leave it for 943. We'll leave that for 443. This part here, For your assignment with OpenVPN, you will select no here. Okay. For our purposes now, and especially for purposes like I was talking about where you know you're going to be traveling, you want to have a server, an OpenVPN server, there you want to do yes for this. So that's actually what I'm going to do here. Okay. So basically what that means is once I connect to the VPN, all of my network traffic goes through the VPN. Okay. So I'll select that, and given that I've selected that, I'm also going to select yes for the DNS traffic, right? Because I'm already on the VPN, so yes, I'll have my DNS traffic also go through the VPN. As I said, for your assignment, you're going to select no for these, and the next time we set this up when we're doing it for our private subnets, I'll also select no for these. Okay, I do bring that up because it was a point of confusion last time. Okay, local authentication, yep, that's fine. Yes, well, here, I mean, technically, since the instance has been launched into the default VPC, I don't actually have any private subnets, but I'm just going to go with the default for that. I could go with the default here for logging into the administrative user interface, but I usually always change this, right? That is, don't go with the default credentials, create your own. Okay, so I'll create my own. I'll just give a username, Dr. V, right? I'll give my password, a password for it. Create a, right, re-enter the password, enter it right, yeah, okay. And then again, here's the option for if you did have a license file, a license key, you could actually enter it in here. Again, for our purposes, with the 2 maximum simultaneous users, we don't need a license, so we hit enter. Okay, and now it's basically going to configure our server. And there it is. Our server's up and running. Notice it actually gives us the URLs to be able to either administer it or to log in. So let's actually take a look at that. So here I'm just going to grab this much here, and I'm going to go over to my browser. And let me go ahead and paste this in. Okay, we'll get that error. I'll talk about that error in a minute. And I just to show that there's nothing going on with SSH, right? So there's no weird tunneling going on. I don't, after I've done the setup for the OpenVPN server, I no longer need to be connected through Putty. So let me go ahead and just exit that, right? So now I'm not connected via Putty at all, okay? Let's talk about this scary mess. Okay, right? Attackers might be trying to steal your information. Oh my God! Here's really what's going on. Okay. The OpenVPN server, by default, creates a self-signed certificate. Okay. The whole idea with self-signed certificates, unlike certificates that come from a certificate authority, is they are less secure because anybody can create a self-signed certificate. If you really were doing this properly, to get a real certificate, what you actually have to have is your own domain. I don't have my own domain. I'm not going to buy a domain just for this example. So we're just going to use the self-signed certificate. But that does mean that our browser is going to kind of pop up this sort of scary looking warning. But again, it's not really that scary when you really understand kind of what's going on behind the scenes. By default, OpenVPN sets that up so we don't have to worry about it. So all you got to do, go to advanced here, and then there's the little link for proceed to that, and there it is. Okay. So here's the login console to be able to administer our server. Right. So I'll use the username that I created and the password that I created. Okay, and once again, the first time you log into to the admin console, it asks you once again to agree to the licensing agreement. That's fine, right? But then here we are. So we now have full configuration ability. We can add users. We can do all those kinds of things. Notice we can stop the server. All of that sort of stuff, right? So that's basically what that looks like. Questions so far? Okay, good. All right, so let me log out because I actually at this point don't need to do any configuration. I have one user configured, basically the user that I created when I started up, so I don't need to add in any other users or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and log out. I'm going to delete the admin section of that. That takes us to the client login section, right? So so here, I think I should be able to go to connect. Let me see. And so here, notice, it basically says click here to download the OpenVPN basically client. So let me go ahead and do that. And now it's actually downloading the installer for the client itself. Okay, I'm just going to kind of go back up here. And let me go ahead and install this. That, incidentally, is the best way and the preferred way to get the OpenVPN client. If you go to OpenVPN's website and download the client there, or at least I didn't try it recently, but in the past, if I've downloaded the OpenVPN client directly from OpenVPN's website, it will not work with this. I think it's sort of a versioning issue. So this way, you actually get the proper version and all that. Once you've installed OpenVPN, you'll get the OpenVPN client down in your taskbar. Okay, so I'm just going to open up this. Right, it actually has already figured out the IP address, but if it hasn't, you can certainly do that. Right, so here, if I come to connect, right, I can put in the that particular IP address, right? Again, it's just the IP address of the server itself. Okay. And I'll go ahead and click continue. Then it asks me for my login credentials. Again, it's the username, the user that I created, and the password. Now, before I connect, right? I haven't connected yet because I haven't clicked connect. Let me show you something. That's my current IP address, right? Basically, it's the NAT or router that is public facing. It's not actually the IP address that my machine has. Okay, but nevertheless, we're good. Okay, so that's it now. Now, let me go to connect. Okay, so it says, yeah, do you want to do this? Yep, I do. And notice it says that I am in fact connected. Notice we get the usual Windows thing of, do I want to allow this to be, no, I actually don't want this to be discoverable on the OpenVPN. So let me go ahead and click no for that. Having done that, my IP address has changed. Why has my IP address changed? Because we selected yes for route client traffic through the VPN. So now, web servers and everybody else, it looks like my traffic is coming from that IP address, not this one. Okay. And so now any network stuff that I'm doing basically is automatically getting sent across OpenVPN. Okay. Notice this IP address is the exact same as the IP address right here, right? Oops, let me get it over on here too. There we go. 54, 236, 152, 73. Questions about that much? Okay. So now all of my traffic from my computer out to the VPN server is secure. It's encrypted. If there was somebody listening on the network between here and there, all they're going to see is basically garbage. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and disconnect. There's the option there. And let me then go ahead and throw away this server. It served its purpose. Cool. Let's create a VPC to explore this stuff with. There we are. Okay, so let me run the wizard. We're just going to go with our with the default, the template of create public and private subnets. Okay, let me just call this VPN demo. All right, so we'll make sure our subnets are labeled and all of that. Again, we'll use a NAT instance. Remember, the whole point of the NAT instance is to allow things in the private subnet to be able to get access out to the internet. Okay, so and again, let me just throw my key up on there. The rest of the stuff I just leave as the default, and we'll go ahead and create the VPC. Okay, so our VPC has in fact been created, right? There that is. Take a look at the subnets. Notice there's our VP. There's our appropriate stuff for that. The routing tables. Okay, so again, let me add in just the tags here. So just like we did last time, because I want the things in the private subnet to be able to have access out. So remember, we did have to set that up. So that is first, notice the one that doesn't have any subnets associated. I'm going to go to the subnet association, and I'm just going to go to edit. And basically, I'm going to select the private one. Why? Because the public one's in the other routing table up here. Okay, so we're setting it up for the private subnet. Okay. Then I'm going to come over to the routes, because recall we did have to make the little change down here. So that is, I'm going to come over to here, and we will delete out this weird that weird ENI thing. We'll change it to our NAT instance. Okay. And again, we could verify that by coming over to here. I am only calling it a NAT, not NAT/Bastion, because we are not using it as a Bastion host this time. It really is just a NAT. I'm not going to log into that, all of that. Okay. And so if we take a look at the ID, where is it? Yeah, there's basically that, and that does in fact equal that one there. Okay, so we'll make that change, save that. And then the one other change that we need to make, recall, is we need to adjust the security group for the NAT to again to allow basically the private subnet. Again, private subnet. Right there's its CIDR block. Let me go ahead and copy that. And then we're going to come over to here and basically just edit this. So changing that to the private subnet. So now traffic from the private subnet will be accepted by the NAT instance. Okay, and again, this is what we did last time. Okay, that was just a review of that. Okay, questions, issues? As I said, that's generally just the review from last time. Okay, let's create some instances. So again, I'm going to come over to my EC2 dashboard. I will go ahead and I'm going to launch two different instances. Well, actually, I'll launch a few different things. So let's see. So let me go ahead. I could do this either way. I could either set up the OpenVPN server first, or I can set up the private servers first. I'm going to set up the private servers first, and then create the OpenVPN. So here, I'll just select the good old Ubuntu server. Right. I'll click select for that. We'll go through our config. So again, typically the micro stuff. Let's make sure that it is in the VPC that we want it to be, and we also want to make sure that it's in the private part of the VPC, right? So coming down here, looking at network, it did actually select VPN demo as the network, which is the one that we want, and it also selected private subnet there. Again, this we saw last time does generally work with private subnets. In playing around yesterday, I actually noticed that it didn't work for public subnets. So if you're kind of paranoid about that, I mean, in the case of the private instances, I don't want them to have a public IP, so I can just make sure to make that change. The rest of the stuff I can leave. The only other thing, let me go ahead and tag it. Okay, so there's our private Ubuntu server, and I'll go ahead and click launch. It will ask me for the key as usual. Okay, so that one's there. Let me go ahead and launch a Windows instance as well. So I'll just go with this one here, the Windows Server 2016 base. I'll leave it on micro. Let's see, it's tight, but it should still work. Okay, again, it's in the VPN VPC. It's also in the private part. Again, just to be extra careful, I don't want it to have a public IP address, so we'll make those changes. Hit review. Again, let me go ahead and tag it. Private Windows server. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and launch it. This time I'm actually, so what I'm going to do, because of the way that you have to get the password for Windows instances, namely, I'm going to actually show you the contents of the key file. So I want something that I'm just going to throw away. So let me go ahead and just create a new key file. Right, I'll just put VPN demo and Windows as the name, and then I'm going to go ahead and download the key pair. Okay, now recall, for Windows instances, I don't need to convert that into a PPK. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and launch that instance. So, really? What? Why? Okay. Okay, so I have my servers in my private subnet. We haven't set up the NAT to be a bastion. I mean, I could log in and do that, but let's see how to use OpenVPN with this. Okay, once again, just launch the instance. Go to our marketplace. Okay, again, search for OpenVPN. Select the correct one. Scroll down through all the nonsense. Okay. Again, I'm just going to kind of go with the T2 instance. We'll make sure to configure the details, right? So again, I want it in that particular VPC, but The OpenVPN server needs to be in the public subnet. Why? Because we want people from outside to be able to access, right? So I'm going to go ahead and select the public subnet. And as I said, this should work, but it seems to not. So again, I'm going to make sure to specify that I do in fact want a public IP for that. Okay, we'll do our review and launch. Okay, once again, let me tag it. All right, and we'll go ahead and launch that. Again, I'll select my key pair. Okay. There we go. Yes. Okay, so once again, since it's a brand new VPN server, so we do need to configure that. Let's go to Putty. Let me go ahead and load up that session. Put in the appropriate IP address, okay, like so, and we'll go ahead and log into that. Right, same types of stuff. So yeah, we'll accept the user agreement, have no choice. Yes, it is the primary access server, right? Again, yeah, we want it on ETH0, that's fine. Go with the defaults for this, right? And here, I'm not gonna route all of my traffic through the VPN, right? So that is, for the most part, my network traffic is all going to go is basically just going to continue to go out through USF's network, but we still can then use the VPN to access the private subnet. So we'll click no there. Also, same thing for here. Since I'm not having all of my traffic go through, I will leave that as a no. Yes, just like we did before. Let's see. Yeah, here, absolutely. We do want this because that's the whole point of this OpenVPN server, to give us access to the private subnets. Okay, so we'll make sure that that's a yes, which it is. Once again, I'm still going to change the login credentials. Okay, and I don't have a license. Cool. All right. So once again, there's the IP address itself, and actually I could have copied it out of. I can either copy it here, or I mean, remember, it's really just the same thing as it is right here. So we have that. Let's go over to OpenVPN. Come on. Why are you being persnickety? Are you already open? I don't need this. Let me close that. No. Ah, there we go. Okay. Connect. I will paste in the appropriate value. Click continue. And there it is. Now, again, even before I enter in my credentials, right? So let's check out a few things. Once again, so now my IP address is back to the USF IP address, right? There it is. The other thing I want to show is, let me go back over to Amazon here. You know what? Let me cancel this for now. I don't need that open just yet. Okay, so if we go back to our instances. So let me pick one of these. There's the private Ubuntu server, right? And let me actually grab its IP address, and then I'm just going to come down to Putty. I'll load up my usual stuff for connecting to that. I'll actually put this in. Okay. And it's going to sit here and eventually time out, right? Because not only is that server in a private subnet, but the network address is within the private network addresses, right? This goes back to the whole classful private addresses. So stuff starting in 10 basically is our private addresses, right? So notice, it seems I cannot get to that particular Ubuntu server, all right? Let me go back over to here. We'll connect. Paste. Nope, wrong one. Yes. And don't ask again is checked, but you keep asking me. So, connection is established. I am connected to the VPN. Now here's the thing that I want to show. My IP address has not changed. Why? Because I'm not routing all of my traffic through that. Okay? However, back to connecting to Ubuntu. It sees that address, basically moves that across, knows now we need to go across the VPN to do that, and now I'm logged into to my private instance, right? I should also, I think we set it up, let's double check that we set everything up right. So yeah, we're able to, notice we're able to ping out. So then we could do our usual, apt-get, update, all those kinds of things, etc. Questions, issues, etc. Okay. Let's take a look at Windows. So for Windows, recall interacting with a Windows server in Amazon's cloud generally is done using RDP. And it's the same thing here. Okay, so here for the Windows server, I'm just going to, I'm going to grab, well, so I've got to do a couple of things. First, I'm going to need to, I actually need to get the Windows password. So let me go over here, get the Windows password, right? Recall, it asks for the key file. So I could have either copied and pasted or, well, where'd that go now? There it is. Okay. Yep, and there it basically shows that. Okay, so now I can do decrypt password, and so now I have all the information for logging in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and run remote desktop connection. Okay, so the IP address, again, it's a private IP address. Okay, I'll go ahead and click connect. Right, and then I'll say use another account. Right now, typically you should be able to just do administrator, but because my machine is set up to log me into a particular domain, then I have to do /administrator, and then the password. This mess. And there it is, logging into the private Windows server. Yep, it's doing its usual setup. We'll get the desktop in a second. Ish. There we go. Right, so there's my desktop and all of that, and then we can do the usual Windows things and so forth. Now, I didn't show trying to RDP into this when we weren't connected through OpenVPN. Okay, so let me actually just show that. So if I shut down or if I disconnect from my VPN, right, the first thing that should happen is actually my current connection should die. Right, notice because essentially I've sort of turned off a network, so this connection is dead. But we already saw before that that was the case. Let's go back to remote desktop. Right, so if I go. Oh, there it is. Right, notice, again, it says, yeah, we've disconnected and all that. Let me go ahead. Okay, so let's just try reconnecting. All right, it already has the credentials in there. And it ain't gonna do it, right? Again, the Windows server is in the private subnet. It has a private IP address. We're not going to be able to be connected unless we're connected to the VPN. Questions, issues, etc. So that's the basics of all of those of using a VPN to connect you to your VPC. Right, really handy. Notice it's large. You know, it's not much in terms of the configuration and stuff like that. Fairly straightforward and all. And then you have that. Let me talk about your current assignment. Okay, so this week's assignment, right, basically is similar to what we did, what you're probably still working on now with the VPC assignment, right? So the idea is essentially you're really going to do kind of the same stuff, except now you're actually going to set up an OpenVPN server to allow people to log in and all, as opposed to using the Bastion host. Okay, and so there's the details for that. You'll create I believe here you're also going to create an additional user to be able to log into Windows, if I remember right. Yeah, right. So notice I said change the administrator password of the Windows server to cloud computing. Now, if you know how to use Windows Server, what you'll go through and you'll try to actually do the normal stuff for changing the username, and it won't work. Right, because it turns out the one in AWS is a little bit different. It's a little wonky. That's fine. Basically, I have something. Where is it? Okay. I have a link to some documentation for actually setting that stuff up, and I also have a video that actually sort of shows just step by step what you do for changing the administrator password on that. Okay, like the current assignment, it's the same thing. So you're going to set all this stuff up. You're going to keep it running until the TA's graded. Again, just like with the current assignment, I strongly encourage you, get it done. Have the TAs check to make sure that it's working, and then you can basically shut that. Well, yeah. If they check, they say it's working, they should enter the grade, and then basically you can shut that stuff down. If it's not working, you can fix stuff, go back again and see them and all that. Questions, issues, etc.
When you say have the TAs check it, you mean go ahead and submit it.
Right, you can, so, yeah, right, so just do a submission, then you can just, send a message to the TAs in Canvas saying, hey, look, I submitted this, can you let me know? And then they can kind of go through and, right. And like I said, because that way, once you get it working, you just get the grade, and then you can just shut the stuff down so you don't have to worry about accruing charges. Because if I remember right, yeah, notice the deadline for this is November 26th, right? So, that's like almost 2 weeks from now, Okay, and part of the reason, it's not necessarily that it's particularly complicated, but we're gone most of next week, right? I mean, it's Thanksgiving break, so I kind of give you a bit of extra time and all that. Other questions and so forth. Okay, good. See you next week.